Hey, welcome in, everybody. It's Tuesday evening. It is November 25th. Everyone's getting ready for the big holiday week. Big travel day here on this Tuesday, which has quickly become the biggest travel day of this week. Not the biggest of the year, and not even the biggest of the whole weekend, which maybe I'll talk to Tim about. We did a little research on air travel, at least some kind of missed out there, but we're keeping an eye on the weather and the impacts on any travel. We were concerned we could see an isolated shower storm timing out with the evening rush, but I'll be honest with you, we have zero weather issues in the Carolinas right now. Doesn't mean we don't have issues in other parts of the country, but even those seem pretty tame compared to what we had earlier this morning. And I'll show you the radar here. If you're leaving right now, there's nothing to worry about, and even between now and 11 p.m., you should be fine. The real only weather that I'm watching is a broken line of showers and storms down in Alabama, moving into Georgia. There is a tornado watch down in there for parts of Alabama and Georgia, but currently no warnings. I'm actually going to put all the warnings on here just so we can see them. But you can see no warnings really popping up. In fact, it looks like the worst of the weather might stay south of Alabama, in southern Alabama, I should say, and south of Atlanta into southern Georgia. So it looks like mid to southern parts of Georgia and Alabama. Now, that line eventually will get up here tonight, and we're going to see that rain get here, but it's going to be closer to like midnight. So if you're traveling now and you only have a couple-hour drive, you should be fine. You see the timing here. Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. looks to be our rain chances here in the Charlotte metro area. And look at those temperatures. That 63 could be our low. That's above our average high, which is like 59 right now. So pretty warm stretch of weather here for the overnight hours. And even tomorrow, looks pretty toasty until that front, the second front, gets here late in the day. Now, this is the hour-by-hour breakdown just to show you the timing. You see that right around midnight. That's when I expect to see the highest rain chances for our area. And that, again, that'll be, most of us will be sleeping. Hopefully no travel issues there because everyone will be done for the day, and they'll get back up tomorrow. We'll start another travel day. But overnight tonight, 50% chance of scattered showers and storms. Temperatures, again, very warm in the low 60s. Tomorrow, equally as warm. Now, if you love mild, warm weather, I highly suggest you get outside and enjoy this tomorrow, because it might be the last really warm day we see for a while, because once this second front moves through tomorrow afternoon and evening, it's going to be pretty dramatic. And here's what it's going to look like tonight. So right there around midnight, notice that we've got that pretty beefy line. I mean, I'll be curious. I was just talking to James. I haven't heard thunder in a while, so if we get some nice nighttime thunder and lightning, that would be kind of cool. Just for the sound effects and some good sleeping weather. One thing I will tell you, this time of year when the leaves are off the trees, watch some of those side roads where the pile of leaves are in the wet roads. It can get kind of slick out there, and you can always get a clogged up storm drain or two when those leaves are on the curb, so you could get some minor street flooding. But eventually by 5 a.m., everything's gone, and by sunrise, zero issues. Tomorrow looks like a great day for travel. So if you didn't travel today and you were worried, hey, maybe some rain or wind, tomorrow's only issue might only be some breezy conditions, but it looks gorgeous. Now, Thursday morning, this is Thanksgiving morning, the winds will have shifted to the northwest. Temperatures will be plummeting, and we're going to get frigid. I mean, we're talking temperatures 20s and 30s in the morning, afternoon highs 40s and 50s. Now, overnight, we'll take every drop of this rain. If we get an inch of rain in the Charlotte area, that'd be the most rain we've seen combined in the last, 30 days, okay? For November, it hasn't rained at all. 29/100ths of an inch on one night, and that's been it. Now, the temperatures, this is probably the hidden story going into the holiday. Talked about how warm it is tonight and tomorrow. There's your afternoon. This is 2 p.m. on Thanksgiving. Let's go into the future here, and you can see by 4 or 5 o'clock, by this time tomorrow, we'll have that front pushing through, and look at these temperatures plummeting all the way down into the 20s and 30s by Thanksgiving morning. Turkey trots are going to be frigid. By the afternoon, could we get to 50? It's going to be a real struggle, but we might get there for a high temperature on Thanksgiving Day. So not a really warm day. If you think that's cold, just wait till Friday morning. Thank goodness we're not the old school days where people waited out for stuff for Black Friday because they would be freezing. Nobody really does that now because everything's online and they start shopping right away. But man, look at that. I mean, it's going to be below freezing, upper 20s. So that would have been a big story for Black Friday morning. Then Black Friday afternoon, 40s. I mean, 45, 46 might do it. And so just to give you an idea, it is going to get chilly going into the weekend and next week. We've been so much above average here lately that this is going to feel like a bigger shock to the system than even it is normally. It's December, by the way, starting Monday, so it's kind of supposed to be cool, but we've been in the 70s for almost all of November, so this will really be kind of a little bit of a shock to the system for a lot of us, and it will be persistent. The 2 coldest nights of the season, likely some of the coldest highs we've seen. We've only seen 2 freezes, by the way, for the entire season so far. That's not a lot, considering that December starts Monday. And I noticed this past weekend, there's a lot of mosquitoes still out. And so I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we have had not consistently cold nights. So some of these insects are actually staying pretty active. So this will be pretty chilly. And just to break it all down for you, tomorrow's the warmest day we see for a while. We go into Thursday, Friday, temperatures in the 40s and 50s. A lot of cool weather. These are the highs. The lows are even colder than this, so 20s and 30s, keeping things chilly. So I'm going to talk with Tim about this, but just a heads up for next week. We've got the good old wedge setup. So let me show you what the wedge setup is, or cold air damming, both terms we use kind of together. But next week, it looks like some cold, dry air will be east of the mountains. When I say cold and dry, think 50s and low dew points. That's kind of normal for this time of year, but that'll be established. What's going to happen is a system is going to come out of the Gulf and spread moisture up and over that. That could produce some really cold, wet weather for Tuesday, Wednesday. But I think a lot of this is going to hinge on this eventual storm track. But just to give you a heads up, that's what it could look like next Tuesday, Wednesday with rain, and we're talking rain in the 40s. So Tim and I will discuss that further because that'll be next week's big weather story, I think. But let's show you our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. This will get you through the weekend into next week. You can see the cool down for Friday, Saturday into Sunday. Home Panthers game, by the way, taking on the LA Rams. That could be a little wet, but I think most of that rain holds off till after sunset. So the game probably fine, but kind of chilly with high clouds moving in. And then we go to 10-day forecast, the first week of December here. Temperatures, especially Tuesday, Wednesday, those are the 2 days I'm watching for that wedge setup. Right now I'm going kind of middle of the road here, mid-40s, but it certainly could be cooler than that if the wedge is a little stronger and wetter than we anticipate. So stick around. Tim Buckley's going to join me. We're going to talk Thanksgiving travel, next week's system, and we'll talk about the beginning of December in just a minute. All right, welcome back. Tim Buckley, as always, joins me from WFMY up in the Greensboro area. And Tim, we're all kind of watching the travel weather today. We were concerned maybe we'd have some scattered showers and storms. And I, frankly, am pretty excited that basically nothing is happening right now in our area, which is, I wouldn't say nothing, but it's pretty much not an impactful day. We had some pretty good little gusty storms this morning, rolled through Atlanta, actually, as expected. Atlanta had some issues this morning with storms, but that line fell apart in a hurry as it got up here this morning, Tim. I know you were watching that closely as well. I was watching it thinking, oh, this might make it here, and I was literally outside and that thing fell apart. I had 5 drops at my house and that was about it.
You know, a lot of times we joke and sometimes might even make fun when people say, these storms always split around my house. Well, that storm split around Charlotte today. Yeah. It really went both directions a little bit, and it really weakened quite a lot. So these things happen from time to time. I'm kind of interested to see what happens overnight tonight. Our models are really beefy with that line coming through between about midnight and, maybe about 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And you can kind of see it now pushing up through Georgia, but there's not really much impact when it rolls through in the middle of the night, not to travel anyway, so we should be okay.
I know. Talk about timing. Now that's the perfect timing. We get some much needed rain, and maybe James and I were joking, we haven't heard thunder in a while. Maybe we'll get some thunder overnight. That will be kind of fun to listen to for the first time in a while. And it happens, hopefully everybody's off the roads, out of the planes and sleeping. But it is interesting tonight, Tim. I think what happened this morning from a meteorological standpoint, you talked about this yesterday. Dew points over us were really low. There wasn't much instability. That thing was kind of outrunning its energy. And once it got to the Carolinas, there just wasn't much support for it. But tonight, the low-level jet, which is the southerly wind, looks like it kicks up a little bit. And I think we might have lows in the low 60s here in Charlotte. So it might actually help maintain that a little bit better tonight than it did this morning when the sun was up.
And that would make sense. We're getting into the time of year where if you only have one thing to look at to judge thunderstorm potential, you might choose the dew point chart over the temperatures, right? It's a lot more helpful because it's not something we usually have available to us. So if you have that humidity, that's kind of a requirement to get that rising air, and maybe we can have some of that tonight. It wouldn't be bad to hear some thunder.
Yeah.
It wouldn't bother me a bit. I know it bothers some people, but if you're a weather geek like us, you're watching the show, you might rather have some of that as a novelty later on this evening.
Yeah, unless you have one of those sensitive pets or a kid, you're like, I don't want to hear thunder at night ever. Those are the ones that deal with it tough. So let's talk about travel. So we talked about there was issues today in Atlanta, Hartsfield. That line came through. It's a pretty good squall line, actually. I think they had a ground stop for 30 or 40 minutes, and they had to evacuate the tower. Here's a live view of Hartsfield International Airport. Atlanta's a tough one. They get a lot of thunderstorms. It's one of the world's busiest airports now. And if you fly Delta, that's an important hub. And I think that really had a lot of issues early today, but it looks like a lot of those delays have gone down. Am I correct, James? What do the delays look like on that?
Brad, a lot of the system has been looking pretty good today, especially when you consider where we have been with staffing problems. If we pull up right now the official FAA website, you can see mostly what's on here is weather related. So in the DC and the New York City area, but this map from the FAA was littered with staffing problems, just a week or so ago. But now we look at this map, mostly what we're getting is just things that are weather related. So here's a look in Philly where you can see conditions are cloudy and rainy.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, Tim. A couple of the airports that I think people have to watch is the Northeast is always an area we watch. I'm looking at our radar here, and we've got rain up there. It's not crazy rain, but rain, just like with road travel, when you're doing air travel, does slow things down a little bit. I'm kind of curious, in the Midwest, we got a pretty potent low pressure system moving through Minnesota, so the Minneapolis area, it looks like it's a cold rain in Minneapolis, but I think one thing from an aviation standpoint, when you have winter weather in the area, you probably got de-icing operations going on up there. And if you've ever been in an airport that doesn't have good de-icing setup, that can really slow things down as well.
Yeah, you've usually got to taxi off to like a separate pad for them to spray that goop on the airplane to help keep things liquid and not freezing the way you'd like it to be on an airplane. But that's going to be a doozy of a system up there, in Minnesota and Wisconsin and all those areas. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten a lot of hype up there because it's going to be a real legit snowmaker. And that map that James had just put up, this is kind of a fun one to check out if you like to see airport travel around the area. This is from FlightAware. It's called the Misery Map, so you can see kind of who's having the most pain at the time. It seems like Atlanta has been leading the way today with the most delays and cancellations, followed by Chicago and then Dallas and then Washington. Volume's a big factor here. They just have more flights than most other folks. But Minneapolis seems to be doing okay so far, and hopefully most of that comes in overnight for them. But New York, D.C., Philly, they always have some issues when it rains, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah, you're right about the volume part, and those bigger circles mean there's more planes going in and out of those airports from a volume standpoint. And so small impacts at those airports tend to have bigger impacts because they affect more flights overall. The other interesting thing is you talk about this Midwest storm. Is you're so right, Tim, because this looks like one of those bona fide November gale type of winter setups where a lot of wind and a lot of lake effect snow because those lakes are wide open. And there's some pretty cold air on the backside of the system. So while it may not be the bigger cities, some of those typical lake effect areas downwind of all the Great Lakes, we could end up getting some stories over the weekend of some crazy totals coming in. And I think the other thing is the drifts because of how windy it is. I was looking at our sister station in Toledo. They were looking at a fetch going up the lake towards Buffalo, and so a pretty good lake effect, but also pushing the water and getting kind of that meteo tsunami kind of setup there where you get lower water levels on the western side of the lake and higher water levels on the eastern side. So that could be something to watch as well. So definitely the Great Lakes, a big impact this weekend with this storm system.
And that's something, in our brain, we don't think about November quite as much as being a winter impact. But that's something that does affect life in the Great Lakes most Novembers. You tend to have a lot of power to get really strong low pressure systems, which create those really, really gusty winds too. I saw Buffalo was talking about maybe some 60 mile per hour gusts going toward the end of the week here. And the thing about lake effect that, is known up there, but not for the other areas. You get the storm, and then when the storm leaves, that's when the lake effect starts to kick up. Yep. So the storm that's happening up there in the Midwest right now, it's going to be the days after that the lake effect will kind of chime in. And it does seem like the totals are probably going to be the most prolific right now up in like the UP. Of Michigan, near Superior and northern Wisconsin, the Northwoods up there. And then if you're in Erie and places like that, that might be later in the week, closer to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that they kind of get slammed a little bit.
Yeah, the UP, the Keweenaw Peninsula, which pokes up there, and those are the Porcupine Mountains there in the western part of the UP. My second market was in Traverse City, Michigan, so I know that area pretty well. You go up there, Michigan Tech is up there in the Keweenaw Peninsula. The only thing they really do is drink and play hockey up there. But they have, the cool thing in that town is they have this giant stick in the middle of town that shows all the snow levels from the previous winters, and it's kind of a cool thing to go look at. It's kind of like what we have around here for some of our flood events, but they have all the years of snowfall. And I'm not kidding you, Tim. I think there's one area up there that one year had like 800 inches of snow. It was like ridiculous because Lake Superior doesn't freeze over. The other Great Lakes will get enough ice, but Superior stays pretty wide open, and because they'd stick out, the wind blows from just about any direction up there. They'd get lake effects. So kind of a low population area, but boy, that is a fun area. If you love snow, the western UP of Michigan is a wild place.
Well, it's low population for a reason. It's hard to live in those areas. Yeah. As someone that grew up in one of those areas, I'm from the Tug Hill Plateau area
the other
of
famous
New York.
Guy, yeah.
That's kind of where like 200-300 inches, depending on how the wind blew that winter. And one of the towns there that does have some folks, and they got a college there too, Oswego, New York. They have they keep track. It's not a snow stick per se, but they keep track. The Public Works Department, they have a big area where they dump all the snow from off the roads with their plowing operations. And they keep track every year of when the last little bit of snow melts away. Yeah. And it's usually in either June or sometimes July. Wow. Because this thing becomes a glacier, essentially. Yeah. And it insulates itself, and it takes a long time to get rid of that thing. And, it's a tough place to live. But like you said, if you like snow, get up there. The real estate's cheap, I can tell you that. Yeah, that's how you are. If you say you love snow, go live there and then come back and see if you say you love snow as much as everybody else. Because that is a lot of snow. Yeah, and having lived in the Midwest, not thankfully that bad. But Tim, snow. I love snow too, but the problem with areas like that, it's not the snow in December, January, February. It's the snow in November, October some years, and then in the spring it's March, April, and sometimes May it's still snowing. And so that's where it gets you. It's like when it's supposed to be over and it's not over. It's a lifestyle, really. Yeah. I mean, you think about just your daily life. It could add an hour or 2 hours of chores on top of your daily life if you're having to snow blow the driveway and deal with it and, just the stress of do I go do this or that or whatever. But not a factor here in the Carolinas very often, but that's how the other half lives up north.
Yeah, Tim, I did want to mention, too, yesterday, we didn't have the video at the time, but we had some tweets, but, we had a tornado touchdown in Houston yesterday, and that was kind of the weather story, where this system was yesterday, and you're looking at some video we got from our sister station, KHOU, down there in the Houston area, but actually had a tornado touchdown there, caused some damage. They haven't rated this yet, have they, James? I don't think so. I'm looking at that. That looks like EF1, maybe borderline 2 damage.
I could double check the rating. We do have a report from our station there who has the latest on cleanup efforts. Yeah,
let's take a look at some of the cleanup. Just looking at the damage from the video, it looks like it could be that borderline. But let's get the latest from Houston on that tornado that touched down yesterday about this time.
As the sun began to set on Northridge Street, the pace of the cleanup intensified. Officials say this part of Precinct 4 was hit the worst by whatever blew through here at about 2 o'clock this afternoon.
He's like, it's wind. I said, run!
Javier and his son took the alert seriously and managed to safely ride out the storm.
We heard glass breaking, we heard trees falling, we heard a thud on the roof. I mean, look around. The neighborhood is full of amazing people.
Javier takes us on a tour of the damage left from the storm, strong enough to snap mature pine trees and uproot oaks.
This was a big, beautiful shade tree. Not much use for it now other than for firewood.
The storm even lifted buildings.
This residence here has a whole garage that's been picked up and moved on top of the power lines.
Assistant Chief Toby Hecker with the Precinct 4 Constable's Office had to shut off the gas to a generator because of the fire starting from downed power lines. The power to the neighborhood was eventually cut off completely in order to reduce the threat of more fires.
I heard like a whistle, and the wind was just so intense. I'd never heard it like that before.
A few streets away, Catherine Franco and her daughter rode out the storm together in their home. Because she acted quickly, the pair is among the many residents able to walk away uninjured after the storm had passed.
We went straight to the laundry room where we were safe. I knew we'd be safe there.
All right, so that was a report from KHOU, and yeah, we got the surveys. As expected, one of those tornadoes was a EF2 tornado. This is the Klein one, I believe, a little bit further northeast of the other one, which was an EF1. Both of these, if you're wondering, if you've never been to Houston, I have family from Houston. It is a huge city, not from a population standpoint, that too, but it is so spread out. I think geographic-wise, it might be the biggest footprint city in the United States as far as square footage or whatever, or square mileage. But this is way up in the northwest part of their metro. Probably to drive from downtown Houston, it would take you like an hour and a half to get up there. But it's in Harris County, which is where Houston is. So 2 tornadoes touched down there yesterday. EF1 and an EF2 caused some significant damage there. And that same storm system heading our way, but as we like to say, it's not going to do the same thing for us. Tim, this will be our overnight line of storm, so we'll see if it unfolds. With at least some thunder and lightning. Before we go, Tim, I did want to talk about next week because there's some interesting trends in the guidance for next week. And not that I think we're going to see wintry weather, Tim, but it does look like we could have a pretty miserable wedge set up at some point next week, and with a pretty active storm track. So I started noticing this today, and I'll kind of show you. This is a European model right there, Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, I say we're on the warm side. I say the warm side because it's not wintry precip, but it'll likely be 30s and 40s with rain. That is the miserable type of cold air damming that we get around here. So stay tuned for that. As cold as this weekend's going to be, Tim, it's going to be cold, the coldest air of the season this weekend. Next week is not looking like a treat either, especially Tuesday into Wednesday.
We mentioned this the last couple of days. If this is an indication of how the models are going to perform for us this winter, I'm not looking forward to this winter because the wild flip and flop in the longer and even medium range. I mean, we're within like 6 to 7 days here.
Yeah.
It's concerning to me because they're really struggling trying to figure out just the flavor of the pattern, whether it would be a warmer ridge or a colder trough. It certainly looks like today now we're swinging back toward that colder feel for the first week, I should say, of December. But yeah, there's some storm potential next week. I think we'll probably take a little while to learn exactly the details as always, but cold and wet is kind of what I penciled in on my 7-day for next week, and be checking back for more info on that. Interestingly enough, our first snow of last year, it was so baby up here, but it was around like December 3rd, I believe. Wow. I think that was about right.
Yeah, you're right.
Not saying that's happening this year.
No,
but I'm just noticing.
You're so right. In full transparency, that this could completely flip back to warm and mild again, because just to peel back what's happening here is we're kind of sandwiched between this trough in the middle of the country and a ridge off the southeast coast, and a subtle shift east or west of those trough ridge setup could put us into a wedge with cold temperatures. Or if it shifts back west, Tim, we could be right back into that ridge, and it could be in the 50s and 60s. And and sunny. So that's why it's always this time of year. You can't just tune in one day. You got to come back and check the weather just about every single day, because this is a crazy pattern going into December. But it's kind of normal, honestly, when you get into the transition from fall to winter. But you're right. I hope this is just the transitional part of the modeling, and this isn't going to be like a long-term trend.
I know.
We joke about the 7-day model runs, but we're